next two presenters are my Aunt Charlotte Mellie, Chairwoman Charlotte Mellie, and Councilman, her brother, Lawrence Snow, my uncle of the Shivwits Band of Paiutes. Of all those now living in Washington County, none has been there as long as the Shivwits Band of Paiutes. The Shivwits settlement at Sham has changed over the years. Most of the early homes are gone, and newer homes have been built east of the old site. The cemetery is still in use. People of the Shivwits Band and the other southern Paiute people remain a close-knit group. The Shivwits Band of Paiutes is one of the 5 bands that comes together to form the Paiute Indian Tribe of Utah. The Paiute Indian Tribe of Utah originally received federal recognition on March 3rd, 1891. And again, please welcome my Aunt Charlotte and my Uncle Lawrence. Thank you.
Hello, I am Charlotte Mellie. I am a descendant of Stuart Snow, and see, I'm nervous, see how crazy that is. And anyway, he was our chief a long time ago, and our family has been in the council from the beginning, so I'm just taking part of it and continuing it on. Let's see, I was to talk about, well, I wanted my brother to make a map of where we are and where we used to be. I don't know how good he's doing that over there, but we were in the area from the Grand Canyon on up through southern Utah toward Nevada and around that area, and they pushed us up into that little corner. But we did intermingle and did cooperate with those settlers that came down, with their Mormon settlers, and we did. That's how we survived. We didn't fight. We were a non-violent band. So anyway, termination of the Shivwits Band of Paiutes. As he's making that map up there, like my niece said, Shivwits, Cedar, Indian Peaks, Kashurim, and Kanosh. We were right now we're located in 4 counties of southern Utah. Shivwits Band is the largest band of the 5 bands, and we do have the largest land base, and we held on to our land base when we were terminated. The others lost their land base. Let's see. How we survived when we were terminated in 1954. As I said before, we were coexisting with the LDS Church, and the younger kids went to school in the winter times to a placement program. And that's how the kids survived. They were there for the winter, and they'd come home. The older people joined the military, and the others worked with the town people. Let's see. We found out that when we were terminated, all the bands should not have been terminated. We didn't fit the criteria for termination. We began talking about reinstatement as early as 1958, but the first efforts were in 1973 when a petition was circulated among the bands calling for restoration of tribal status. At that time, Utah State Director of Indian Affairs, Bruce Perry, contacted BIA Area Director John Artichoker, and then met with Morris Thomas, Commissioner of the Indian Affairs in Phoenix. Both were supportive. A report was drafted by Mary Ellen Sloan, a law student working for the Regional Solicitor's Office. The 9-page memo established Paiutes didn't meet the criteria for termination. Promises were made by Senator Watkins, and they were not kept. In 1975, Larry Echohawk, and an Indian attorney, was approached by McKay Picovet, a member of the Paiute Tribal Corporation Board. When we started reorganizing, we thought that we need to stick together. All the 5 bands, we can come together as a whole to not work against each other and to establish this. So each band had a representative on that corporation, and he was one of the members. Okay, they met with Bruce Perry and initiated the legal process required for restoration. Many meetings were held during the 1975 to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of restoration. And I have a copy of the information they sent around. It says questions and answers handout about the Paiute Restoration Act. The first question was, why was the Restoration Act necessary in order for the Paiutes to receive federal services from the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Indian Health Service? And then it tells the question, the answer to the question there. The other question is, what effects did termination have on the bands and their members? And it was a result of all the land held by 3 of the bands was lost. Services offered by the federal government to which the members were entitled were no longer available. The trust responsibilities which the federal government owed to the bands was ended. As a rule, after termination, the Paiutes continued to live in conditions of poverty. Few had jobs, adequate housing, or education opportunities. Another question was, once the act takes effect, will the Paiutes be eligible for services from the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Indian Health Service? Yes. And what services will the Paiutes be eligible for? They'll be eligible for receiving education help, financial assistance through BIA loans for college, health care assistance. It says, where will the Paiutes receive these services? They were receiving it from the BIA agency. These services will become initially from the Phoenix area office of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and then it gives the address. Will restoration affect the Paiutes' right to receive services offered by the state of Utah? No. What is the name of the tribe? The 5 bands will be called the Paiute Indian Tribe of Utah. Which Paiute bands will be affected by the Paiute Restoration Act? And it lists all the bands. How will membership be determined under the Paiute Restoration Act? And it says, before the tribe adopts a constitution and bylaws, any person who was listed on the termination roll or should have been listed on that roll in 1954 will be a member. Also, anyone who is a descendant of either of the above and who is at least 1/4 degree Paiute Indian may be a member. Since the Cedar Band was not terminated, anyone listed on their Cedar Band judgment roll or who should have been listed on that roll is eligible for membership. Also, anyone who's a descendant of either of the above and 1/4 degree Paiute Indian is eligible. How will the new tribal government govern itself? Before the Constitution and bylaws are adopted, the government body will be called the Interim Council. It will be made up of 6 elected officials. Each band should have 1 representative, and a chairman should be the 6th person. How is the representation selected to the interim council? And then it tells you how that is, and how long will the interim council be in charge until the tribal officials are elected. What is the power? And then it goes through that one. How long can the interim council bind the tribal government? What happens if there's a vacancy on the council? How does the tribal government get formed? And when and how will the tribal council be elected? What effects will restoration have on land owned by a band? It says within 1 year after passage of the act, any land owned by the bands may be transferred to the Secretary of Interior and taken into trust. Once this occurs, no tax may be imposed by the local, state, or federal government on the land. Any taxes owed before the Secretary of Interior takes the land in trust must still be paid. Once the land is transferred to the Secretary of Interior, it will be taken into trust on behalf of the Paiute Tribe. However, it is the intent of the Senate Select Committee on Indian Affairs that each band would maintain control over the land, which they transfer into trust. It says, if a crime is committed by a tribal member on land owned by a band, which government will exercise jurisdiction? The Act provides the state of Utah will exercise jurisdiction over land even if it is held in trust. And we are a 280 state, that's PL 280 tribe. So, because we don't have a jurisdiction or a tribal judge, yeah, we don't have that right now. But once we get that, or if we ever do in the future when we get money, then we could get out of that 280. It says, is there any provision in the Restoration Act for lands to be purchased for the bands? The Act provides the Secretary of Interior shall develop a plan which, if approved by Congress, would allow the purchase of up to 15,000 acres of land for the Kanosh, Kasharam, Indian Peaks, and Cedar City bands. since they didn't have any, and we had our own, the Shivwets. These lands could be acquired from federal, state, or privately owned lands. There is no guarantee that lands will become available. It will require more hard work for Paiutes to ensure that this event occurs. It says, how long does the Secretary of Interior have to complete this plan? 2 years from the date the act becomes law. How will the plan regarding the acquisitions of reservation lands be developed? Then it goes through, I don't know if you guys want to hear that. It says, will the land which is to be developed have any effect on hunting and fishing rights? The act requires the plan to include a statement that hunting and fishing rights are not granted or restored by the enlargement of reservation lands. Are there
Does that
any?
mean that you don't own any of the animals on the land that you acquire?
No, we don't own anything. We don't own the land, really. We take care of it, or take care of it. Go ahead, answer that.
So,
My
you
land.
just read that if you acquire more land, that your tribe does not have the right to any of the natural resources on that land?
We went through the state. The state has jurisdiction on the reservation. So what we did, we made an agreement with the DNR, Division of Natural Resources, that we can hunt on our reservations, but they give us tags so we can keep track of what we kill, keep track of the herds. And it's also used as a transport. If you transport off the reservation, you get stopped by a Division of Natural Resources, you can show them that tag. So that's an agreement with the Division of Wildlife.
Yeah, we work with our county people and our state people to get what we can, you know. And what we say is keep your enemy close, you know what I'm saying. So that's how we work. That's how we are. And that's how I believe.
Are you limited as far as how many animals you can hunt per year, or
Well, on our reservation,
fish?
I mean, back in the day, before we was reinstated, the Shivwets held on to this land. The old people incorporated themselves, and they used cattle, sand, and gravel leases. And we paid our taxes. We had like 27,000 plus, a small reservation. So we paid our taxes on this reservation. Well, the Indian Peaks band lost their reservation, which is over here, close to Nevada. And they lost theirs, and everybody else lost their determination, but when they terminated, we just paid our taxes and we kept our property. So back in those days, when I was younger, going with my grandparents, we lived off the land. We hunted cocktails, squirrels, deer, year round. That's what we ate, potatoes. As the people went out to find work, we could see the Spanish people doing now. We used to do that. Some of the people still do that. They pick potatoes, bunch onions, and stuff like that. And they had a turkey farm. Most of the members worked there just to make ends meet. That was their determination. So.
Thank you. Okay, we'll continue on. Many meetings were held, and Utah State Senator Frank Moss requested BIA draft a proposed legislation. Senator Moss and Congressman Gunn McKay were ready to introduce the bill, but Moss was defeated by Orrin Hatch in 1976. The original draft of the restoration bill in 1975 provided each band to be restored as a separate political entity, which their pre-termination status, with their anyway. A third draft was done in 1976 and included all bands under one government. The Menominee and Slits, I don't know if I'm saying that right, tribes were restored in 1975 and were a good model and precedent to follow, and that's what they followed for their bill. It was similar to the Slits restoration bill and was presented to Senator Hatch. In July 1979, there was a meeting of the Paiute Restoration Committee, which was formed to lobby for the best possible legislation for the Paiute cause. It consisted of Paiute Tribal Council and influential Utahns from diverse backgrounds. Tactics included writing letters of support, making phone calls, and encouraging Mormon support and sympathy of the Paiutes. History and other materials were compiled to support the Paiute claim that we had suffered unjustly as a result of termination. There was some opposition to the idea of inclusion of reservation plan from conservative circles, but in most part there was little interest or serious opposition from white populations in southern Utah. On August 29, 1979, Senator Hatch held a meeting at the college in Cedar City to access opinion of Paiute recognition. 40-plus Paiutes attended and spoke of discrimination with examples. The president of the college said Paiutes were unable to attend college as other recognized tribes were able to. Some locals opposed even grazing lessees of the Shivwits who helped us retain our land during termination. Bruce Perry and Mary Ellen Sloan met with the bands before the House hearing, gathering statistics on current social economic status of the Paiutes. Per capita income for them was $1,968 in contrast to $7,000 for an average citizen. 15 amendments to the Hatch Bill were done, including provisions for reservation land. Public Law 96-227 was signed by President Carter and became law on April 3, 1980. Currently, Shivwits is still the largest band with 300 members out of our 892 Utah Paiute tribal members. We fought for and received a water settlement and we lease reuse water to golf courses in Washington County. We are looking into businesses on the reservation, but since we love our land, we are picky about who comes on there and what they do, so we haven't had any major people coming onto our land at this time. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Oh,
Okay, he's the storyteller.
okay, I'll tell you a little bit how it was when we were terminated. I was born in 1960 in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was 2 years old, my father died. My mother was 17 years old when she had me. But anyways, we came up, and my grandparents, this is where the old houses were down here on the reservation, down by the river. Before termination, that is where the BIA had their headquarters. When they terminated, they pulled out all the farm equipment. We have like maybe 80 acres farmable land down on the bottom there. And they took away all the cattle and the horses that they used, and they just pulled out, left us high and dry. But anyway, so my grandparents, there's like an old school they had there, my grandma used to go to, and on the other side of that was another house where the superintendents used to stay, and all the other Indians stayed up along here. But they moved out after the termination, go out and look for jobs. Everybody left the reservation. There was like three. There was us, the Snows, the McPhees, the Rogers, and there's the Marbles that stayed here. There's 4 families. We had no electricity, no running water. I remember growing up, and as I was growing up, we had outhouses. And I remember one day my grandfather told me to go and dig a new hole, and it felt like a rite of passage to me. It was like a going up thing. So I went out there and I dug a hole and moved everything, put it all together. But it was fun. I mean, I didn't even know how other people lived, because my grandfather was a spiritual man. He sang the salt song. I don't know if you guys know the salt song. Coming from the Colorado River, went around to ceremony. But when people passed away, they'd go out to these different places, to Kaibab, down to Moapa. So I got to drive right along in a little station wagon doing about 50, 45 miles an hour. Takes quite a while to get there, but we knew all the people. And they'd give them a few bucks for gas or whatever to feed us, and then they'd send us back home. He was the main spiritual salt singer for all the Paiutes in that area. But as I was growing up, he taught me about this reservation. With my grandmother, we'd go out, like I said, we hunted cottontails in the evening and the morning, go out chop wood. All these roads in here we'd go hunt. We'd even go hunt off the reservation. We'd come back, but basically that's where our food was. When I was growing up, he bought me a 22 single shot, and he gave me so many bullets and said, "Go get me some dinner." to this day, I don't waste any bullets at all. To me, it's just a waste. But that's what I learned myself being brought up in that way. I really didn't know I was poor until I went to school, started grade school. And noticed how everybody else was dressing, and here I was, thought I was looking good. Wasn't even. But there was a lot of prejudice towards this because of where we sat in the county. In Washington County, we were the biggest landowner in Washington County in southern Utah. And there's a corridor, this Kern River power line and pipeline go down through here. And we got that corridor blocked off to go to St. George. We've been approached by a gas company to get a right of way through here, and we said, yeah, you can have it for $1 million. And they backed off. And like Charlotte says, we're trying to take care of this because as we were growing up, this is who we are. This is what we are. And without this, we're nobody. And as we were going through termination, and we got before we got reinstated, we had a council come through that didn't pay our taxes, and we almost lost this. But as we told you, we was leasing to the cattleman, and the cattleman from Santa Clara, which is a town down here, came in and talked to my grandfather. He says, I'll pay your taxes for this year if I can run my cattle until the money that I paid is paid off. So they made a deal and we saved that. We saved that. Otherwise we would get lost. But as we were going through and we got reinstated, Cedar City, Chautauqua, Easy Peaks, Kanosh, and Richfield, we all banded together to become one. But as the largest landowner in our own, and to me, this is just us. Granted, we got these other people that are in the tribe. And our tribal administration's in Cedar City. So I feel very protected in this because we've never lost this land, and when we got reinstated, they got pieces of land. So here, our council is, and we're very protected in this, even if our administration's here. So we feel like we should be our own administration, but if we did that, then it'd bust up the tribe, and we have power with numbers. You got to remember that, power with numbers. And one of the things that we were talking about, the older people talking about getting restoration, is we needed the health, as everybody said, the education, the housing, and the other stuff that comes along with that being restored. One of the things I found out later in the years of being restored is you become the trust of the United States government, the BIAs, you're held in the trust. And it's a good thing because you get all the grants and the monies and stuff like that, but they also got authority over this. You have to listen to what they say because they're the United States government. So it's almost like a catch-20 in some ways. But as through the years, there's St. George lives here, and they've got a well field up here, water, culinary water. And they had to come, like I said, we had this corridor. They had to come through to get to that well field with a power line and a water line that goes back to the city. So the old people made a deal. They moved the houses up here where the power line's going to be. So we moved from here to where the village is now. So we've got water and we've got culinary. Back in the day, they made a deal, it was a forever right away. Because the old people, they're thinking about the future, about what's good for them, whether it's for the people. Come to find out, probably about 5-6 years ago, that right away, that was description, they were out of that description. So we null and voided that right away. Now we dropped it down to 50 years, 25 years. So it's not a forever right away. So we got water now here, we got here, people are moving back to the reservation now. We're getting grants, we got a grant to have a gymnasium, so we got a little small gymnasium. And with that water right she was talking about, just, we got settled, we had 2,000 acres of water coming out of Santa Clara, well 19 of it actually. Then we got a well up here, 100 acre feet of water out of it. And then in St. George, we get 2,000 acre feet of reuse water. And St. George is like a retirement community, so they got a lot of golf courses and a lot of green places. So we lease the water, reuse water out to these different golf courses and municipalities. And on the Santa Clara River, there's a fish called the Virgin River spine dace. It's an endangered species. They replanted them in here. So let me jump back a little bit. During the water rights, there's a dam up here called the Gunlock Dam. What they wanted to do is they wanted to put this water into a piping system because they thought they were losing water out through the evaporation and stuff. So once they did that, they put the water in it, pressurized all that water in there, so we have pressurized irrigation water. It goes all the way down into St. George. And we released about 3 CFS for the fish, well up here. In my agreement, I wanted to keep the reservation green. Because when they put it in the pipeline, from here to there, nothing's growing. It's all dead. So we release water here, there's a bridge here, we release water there, so it's all green through our reservation. The thing about it comes to, I'm thinking I hear people talk and want to get, let's talk to some older people out here at lunch. Restoration it helps. You gotta remember one thing, you gotta remember who you are, your culture, and your families. They can never take that away from you, ever. And there's power in numbers. You guys all can some way to get together and become one and work towards that. Growing up, like I said, there was a lot of prejudice going on in that area back in the day. And no one would come up on the reservation, they're scared of the Indians, everybody's scared of everybody. But as I was growing up, I learned how to talk to the people. And then you get on, like now I sit on like I guess it's water board. But you get to know these people and you know how they think. Like Charlotte was saying, keep your enemies closer, so you can know what's going on. Be friends like they always do to you, and then they talk behind your back. And just like you was talking about BIA, they get their orders from DC. I'm seeing that now. There's different talk going in Washington, DC because of the elections. And I don't know what's going to happen, but just to hear the talk, the Indians are going to be under the gun if the person of color goes out. So keep that in mind. So when you talk to these people, Utah is a Republican state. When you talk to these people, talk to your neighbors. Be friends with your neighbors, but always keep that eye out and listen how they talk. Because sometimes they just tell you what you want to hear. And you got to be able to understand that. Especially these people that are in higher places, they'll tell you one thing and then they'll go back in the office and they'll write something else down. So as you're trying to get together and be restored, talk to your senators, congressmen, get your committees together, show them that you mean right here from your heart. Your people, it's your culture. Once you lose your culture, and we've lost. Try to, teach your children, your grandchildren, who you are, where you come from. try not to get them lost in this rat race that they call society. Because it's easy to do. I've seen it. I was one of them once when I was younger. I was young, dumb, but I grew up. So my motto is, there's this one saying I always remember. I was watching Outlaw, Jeremiah, Josie Wells, Chief Dan George. What do you say? Endeavor to persevere. Oh, no.
What's your primary employment or income for your people now?
For the tribe? How the tribe's making money?
Is the tribe making it?
We're making one for water leases. One thing we had to do when we got our water lease, we had to quantify. And we got a water engineer out of Montana, and we looked at all of our area, what we could have done, like, oh, we want to do a golf course, or we can farm here, got this whole farm, and we quantified it, and that's what we got. So now we lease that little farmland we got down here. We used to do, my grandma used to have gardens, and then we had a big hay field. But what we're leasing our water out for, that really doesn't make any money going hay. We're making some pretty good money off our acre foot selling down to these golf courses. So that's how we're getting some of our money, basically the majority of our money. And then along on top of that, we got a $5 million economic fund. And that's for the BIA. I'm telling you about the BIA. You want to say that? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we're trying to do a convenience store, gas station on the reservation. And we did a strategic plan, we did the feasibility study, we had all that put in there. And we even had the people that are taking care of our money, the trust, come and they said, that's good, you know. Well, they said, BIA says it's not feasible. These guys did their information from not in our area, somewhere else, It's not feasible. So that's what's holding up. We even went back to Washington last couple of months ago.
Yeah.
We talked to the Secretary of Interior, acting, it wasn't actually the.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah.
The reason whether it was an economic feasibility?
The facts they used were in that area. They used it from a different county or something like that. It wasn't for that area, is what they were saying.
So they were saying it's business failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what they said back in Washington, he says, well, that was a long time ago, old school, where they were nitpicking. Now, let us do, what we want and what we think is best for us. BIA has no say. But it hasn't trickled down from there to the local yokels.
So how far are you away actually from St. George?
About 10 miles.
Oh, so everybody.
They work
you guys
in,
meet
yeah.
in St. George then to work?
Yes.
or-
Yeah.
Like we said, the different bands are in charge of their own areas. Cedar Band has a smoke shop. They just had it last year. They got a smoke shop. And then they have IT. They have grants coming from the,
Something with computers.
yeah, computers. Well, it's an international, they get information. Well, and that's how they make their money. And that's the bands, their bands. And then Indian Peaks is trying to start a RV park,
RV park.
as well as Kashuram. So they're all trying to do something separate. But the tribe as a whole in Cedar City gets their funding to run from our, some kind of funding. They get like the percentage to run the tribe from our,
Whatever money the bands make, they're supposed to pay 10% into the tribe.
Yeah.
but it's not written.
Yeah.
It's not really.
So it's not enforced at this time, so.
Do you have any casinos in that area?
Pardon me?
We're from Utah. It's a Mormon state. We don't have casinos in.
But there is casinos right down here where everybody goes.
Where everybody goes?
Okay, this is Arizona, and this is Nevada.
Oh.
And it's like 30 minutes away to Mesquite, Nevada. And that's where everybody goes and
Okay.
Oh, I wanted to
stress
know,
relief.
being you're in Utah or from Utah, what is the, I know this really doesn't matter, but what is the Mormon influence on the Indian people?
Back in Termination, I was going to say this, thanks for bringing that up.
Huh? I didn't think it really mattered, but,
Well, it did for the survival of the Chivas people. Once the federal government pulled out, Mormonism pulled in. And my grandfather and my grandmother, they were truly into that because what happened was that they'd come out to the reservation and they'd have church services. And then they'd go and work for their little canneries and their little, where they had like a food farms. And once you worked there, you'd get food and you could bring it back home and eat. And it also helped, it had a thing called the placement program. For the younger kids, all the way up to high school, through the school year, they'd take them up to different areas in the Wasatch Front, and they'd live with these Mormon families for a year and go to school. And they took me up there when I was 8, one time I ran away. That was it, I didn't even do a whole year. Because now you straight off the res and sitting at the table and praying and just basically living with a different culture. It was a shock when I was being 8 years old. But a lot of people did succeed to go graduate from high school through that program. I don't think that program exists anymore, does it?
No.
So yeah, that influence came in after the federal government pulled out.
So what's your square acreage of your reservation?
What do you mean?
What's your area?
Where-
Of the reservation,
How many acres?
ours.
is it?
Oh, it's about 27 plus, just right here, and then this is added on. This is a section which is a mile by a mile. This is added on. This is added on probably about 6 years ago, and this is probably about, I want to say 5 years ago, maybe 4. This is always our reservation. We just found out about it. It's just like one of you talked about information. People have this information. I'm going to call them white. I don't want to offend anybody. The higher up, they have this information. That information is available to you too, but they're dependent on it that you don't know this information. So information is something that we all got to have to study up on when we want to go out there and talk with these people. You can say, well, and then you have a good argument. They're hiding information. Okay, what was I saying?
Land base.
So did you say
Okay, yeah, and this is added on about 4 years ago. In Washington County, they had a deal called the land bill. They took back to D.C. And the chairman back then, Glenn Rogers, they contacted him. What they're trying to do is they're trying to save some of the area around St. George from being built on because it's expanding so fast. So when the chairman Rogers got involved, we went back to Washington D.C. to fight for the land bill. They gave us an additional mile by mile. So that's how we got that. And this is always our reservation. They just didn't tell us about it. Until one day I went up there driving and I seen the old fence line. And they were trying to say that was held with school trust, but it wasn't. It was our part of our reservation, so we fenced that off. So a lot of that stuff's out there. They're just hoping that you don't find out about it.
now, was that 27 acres or 2,700?
27,000.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And then you got, how many acres in a square mile? 1, 2, 680?
640.
640?
Yeah.
640 and 640 on 27,000.
28.
It's a small reservation as reservation goes.
Mine here in California?
But, you know, I've noticed how these people were talking, they had all this information. If you get the right, if you band together, get your leadership, talk to your representatives, you know, show them that we're people. We want to save our culture. Our culture's dying, and once our culture's gone, we're gone. Granted, that's what they want to see. That's what I want to say. Just hold on to our culture, teach our culture as much as you can to our young people. And I was talking to the older people out here at lunch. I says, that blood quantum thing created by the government. See, these old people, white people, they look far into the future. When they did the blood quantum, they're going, eventually they're going to bleed out and they'll be more Native American. To me, that's kind of a conspiracy. So let's don't bleed out. Let's hold our culture together forever.
So, we would like to thank our presenters for coming today. And we have a gift for every presenter. Would you please come forward? Val.
Would Val come forward? Val Lopez, thank you. Can we have Alan, not Adam, Alan, come forward, please?
Stephen left.
Stephen left. Okay, well, this is for Stephen. Let's round of applause for him. Thank you for being here. And Charlotte, will you come give your gift? Thank you. And Lawrence.
Okay. Thank you for
Lord.
coming. Thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you all for coming to our event today. We thank you for your presence and for being here and letting all your opinions show and like your thoughts and your feelings into this really important issue. And it was really good as a student to be here to really like open my eyes to a lot that everyone has to deal with. And it's like Lawrence says, it's different from where you come from. Like me coming from, I grew up in a tribe where it was all I knew was federal recognition. That's all I knew. And so it's really interesting to hear a lot of people's stories. And so like you said, to band together and, you know, be as one and really don't let your culture die. That's one thing that our family put into us was our culture, knowing who we are, where we come from, even if we don't have as much blood quantum. Like I'm only half, quarter, and so, but I still see that I know a lot more than those who are full-blooded because I care. My parents taught me to care, my grandmother. So, you know, as long as you have that culture and know who you are, you know, they can't take that from you. And that's something you take to your kids, you know, let them be proud of who they are and that they're beautiful. They come from a beautiful culture that you see it around. Many people want to be us, you know, Urban Outfitters and then Navajo clothing. And it's like, people want to be us, you know, because we have a culture that's beautiful and alive. So, you know, just remember that. You know, people dress up like us on Halloween, you know, that's how much they want to be us. So keep that alive and be strong. And thank you for being here again. And thank you for those that came so far and enjoyed their rides here and enjoyed beautiful Santa Cruz. But thank you again.